welcome to today's deep dive. The mission for our session today is honestly a really critical one. We are looking at a quiet crisis in youth mental health and unpacking the really innovative ways that schools and parents are trying to fix it.
Yeah, it's a topic that affects almost everyone, honestly.
Right. And to do this, we're pulling from two main sources. We have an excerpt from a really fascinating research piece called The Silent Struggle, which focuses on male youth mental health. And we're pairing that with actual operational data from a K-12 program based in Georgia called MentalSpace School.
Which is great because we get the theory and then the actual real-world application.
Exactly. But to kick things off, I want to share a really staggering piece of New World Health Organization data. It turns out that 75% of boys who are struggling with their mental health will not tell their parents.
Wow, 75%.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. I mean, picture a teenage boy writing this desperate private note on his phone, right? And then he just deletes it before anyone can see it.
Because he thinks he has to handle it himself.
Right. Or, maybe he drops a vague hint to a friend. But mostly, they keep it entirely to themselves. They carry this huge burden totally alone.
And that right there is exactly why this matters so much for you, the listener. I mean, whether you are a parent, an educator, or, just someone trying to understand the young men in your life.
For sure, because they're suffering right in front of us.
Exactly. And the whole goal of this deep dive is to really understand that silence. Why are they so quiet? And then we want to explore a tangible roadmap for actually breaking that silence.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that 3 out of 4 metric is it's haunting.
It really is.
So if they aren't talking to the people closest to them, what exactly is keeping their mouths shut?
Well, before we can even look at solutions, we really have to understand the root cause behind that statistic. And if you're a parent listening, the most important thing the Silent Struggle points out is that this silence is not a verdict on your parenting.
Right, because I think a lot of parents immediately feel guilty. Like, what did I do wrong?
Totally natural reaction, but the research says it's really not about you. It's the result of 1,000 small societal messages these boys absorb from age 4 onward.
The whole man up messaging.
Yes, exactly. It's be strong, don't be a burden, figure it out, and, don't cry.
Right, they hear it on the playground, in sports, literally everywhere.
Everywhere. And the really scary part is that when puberty hits, these messages don't just, fade away. They actually harden into permanent behavioral traits.
That makes total sense. It's like society hands young boys this heavy suit of armor at age 4, right, to protect them.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, but then by the time they hit puberty, the joints of the armor have just completely rusted shut.
Wow.
They're trapped inside the armor, and they've totally forgotten how to even ask someone for the key to get out.
That is exactly what the research is saying. They are trapped. And because they're trapped in that armor, the traditional ways our schools ask them to seek help are, frankly, essentially useless.
Because the schools are expecting them to just take the armor off on their own.
Right. We have what the sources call a passive disclosure system, and it completely fails this demographic.
Wait, explain what you mean by passive disclosure.
So it means the school provides the resource, like a counselor's office, but they passively wait for the kid to come to them.
Oh, right. Like, raise your hand, ask for a pass, and walk down the hall.
Exactly. And for a struggling teenage boy, he is highly unlikely to raise his hand in front of his peers or, fill out some vulnerability form.
Or initiate a visit to the counselor's office where everyone can see him.
Right. The psychological barrier is just way too high. The perceived social risk is catastrophic for them.
So if that's the case for schools, what about at home?
Well, for parents, the goal isn't to force the issue, right? You don't want to try and crack your son open like a safe.
No interrogation under a bright lamp at the kitchen table.
Exactly. The goal is to slowly become the kind of parent he feels safe telling on his own terms. In those quiet, unplanned moments, like driving in the car.
Right, because you're both looking at the road, no direct eye contact. That totally makes sense for a parent. But I got to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
So what does this all mean for a school? Because a parent has the luxury of time and car rides.
True.
If we know a boy will not walk down a crowded school hallway into a counselor's office, how on earth is a school district supposed to reach him without it feeling like a total interrogation?
It's the million-dollar question. And to answer it, we have to talk about changing where and how the intervention actually happens.
Okay, no mistake.
The sources say it all starts with side-by-side adult relationships. So we're talking coaches, club advisors, teachers.
Adults who are just naturally in their environment.
Right. You embed the mental health screening during routine touch points rather than waiting for a massive crisis.
But even if a coach notices something's wrong, the kid still has to eventually talk to a therapist, right?
Yeah.
We still have that hallway problem.
And that is where the psychological game changer comes in, teletherapy.
Taking it digital.
Exactly. The sources showed that a male student who would never risk the public exposure of, walking into a counselor's office at lunch, he will actually show up to a teletherapy session.
Wait, really? Just because it's on a screen?
Well, not just because it's on a screen. It's because he can do it in his bedroom with the door closed.
Oh, wow. The closed door. That's the shield.
Yes. It offers complete privacy and control. They don't have to face the public judgment.
It's all about lowering the activation cost, isn't it?
It's a great way to phrase it.
Yeah, it's the difference between asking someone to climb a huge mountain just to get a glass of water versus just, turning on a tap right inside their house. We are basically removing the friction of seeking help.
Exactly. You engineer the friction out of the system entirely.
Okay, so now that the theory of lowering the activation cost is clear, let's look at a concrete, real-world execution of this. Because the data from MentalSpace School in Georgia is really eye-opening here.
It really is. They provide a perfect case study of this exact philosophy.
Right. So what does their infrastructure of support actually look like in these K-12 schools?
Well, they provide same-day teletherapy, which is huge.
Same day. That's incredible because, if a kid actually opens up, that window of vulnerability closes so fast.
Exactly. If you tell them to wait 3 weeks, they'll just put the armor back on.
For sure. So they have same-day access. What else?
They have dedicated therapist teams for each specific school. They handle crisis interventions, suicide and violence prevention, and they even do staff wellness and family counseling.
So it's really a comprehensive net for the whole community. But what about the privacy side? Schools and technology can be a messy mix.
Oh, absolutely. But the logistics here are seamless. The platform is fully HIPAA and FERPA compliant.
Right, so the medical records and the educational records are completely protected. The school principal can't just, log in and see what a kid is talking about in therapy.
Exactly. It's totally confidential. Plus, it actually supports these schools with upcoming state mandates. Like in Georgia, they have this HB 268 compliance deadline hitting in July 2026.
And those state mandates usually mean a ton of extra paperwork for the school administrators, right?
A nightmare of paperwork. But this system basically automates that compliance for them so the kids actually get the care without burning out the staff.
That's incredibly smart. And I noticed in the data that they emphasize their therapists are licensed, diverse, and culturally competent.
Yes, which is another huge part of lowering that activation cost.
Right, because if a young guy logs on and the therapist doesn't understand his cultural background or, what masculinity looks like in his neighborhood, that's immediate friction.
He'd have to explain his whole world before he could even talk about his feelings.
Exactly. So culturally competent care removes that hurdle. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room with healthcare. Money.
The financial friction is usually the biggest barrier of all.
Right. You could have the best system in the world, but if a family can't afford it, it doesn't matter. So how does MentalSpace handle that?
They've negotiated with almost every major commercial provider. So they take Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, UHC, Humana, Peach State, CareSource, and AmeriGroup.
So that covers a massive chunk of the commercial market.
It does. It removes so much headache for those families.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because covering commercial insurance is great, but what about the most vulnerable kids?
Right, the Medicaid population.
Yeah. The source says that for Medicaid students, the cost is literally $0.
Zero. Completely subsidized.
I mean, a $0 closed-door teletherapy session sounds absolutely brilliant on paper. It entirely removes the financial barrier to entry. But do we have proof that this invisible safety net actually works?
We do. The hard outcomes from the sources are pretty undeniable.
Okay, let's hear the numbers.
Schools using this model are seeing an 89% improved attendance rate.
Wow, 89%. Because chronic absenteeism is so often tied directly to unaddressed anxiety, right?
Exactly. When the kid feels better, they actually show up to school.
Makes perfect sense. What else?
They also reported a 92% reduced anxiety rate among the students using it.
92%. That is literally life-changing for a teenager.
It really is. And it doesn't just stop with the student. They have an 85% family satisfaction rate, too.
Which means the whole household is feeling a relief.
Right. It creates this ripple effect that brings the ambient stress of the whole home down.
It really brings everything full circle, doesn't it?
Okay.
I mean, we started out looking at that really dark WHO statistic, that silent struggle where 75% of boys are too terrified to ask for help.
Because of that legacy code telling them to never be a burden.
Right. But what this data shows is that tackling youth mental health, especially for these young men, it isn't about demanding they speak up.
No, not at all. It's about redesigning their environment.
Yes, lowering the activation cost, making it so that reaching out isn't this terrifying public ordeal.
You give them a closed door, culturally competent care, and remove the financial stress, and suddenly they are willing to talk.
It's such a hopeful shift in how we handle this. Well, thank you to the listener for taking the time to explore this incredibly vital topic with us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate you joining the deep dive.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final kind of lingering question to ponder on your own.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
Well, we spent this whole time talking about teenagers. But if these ingrained man-up messages harden during puberty, and they completely prevent a teenage boy from walking into a counselor's office today, what does that mean for the generations of adult men in our workplaces and our families?
Oh, wow.
Right. Now, these are men who grew up without the option of teletherapy in a quiet bedroom. If the friction to get help was too high for them back then, how is that silent struggle still playing out right next to us in adulthood?